Hello, today is May 23rd, 2001. We're aboard the Battleship New Jersey, BB-62, located now in Camden, New Jersey. My name is Dr. Tom Banna from Kean University, and I'm working with Paul Lobauer of Pro Media of Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And today we're talking with Mr. Ralph Ivie, who served aboard the Battleship New Jersey as part of the Marine Detachment from 1946 to 1948, when it was decommissioned following World War II. He served as an orderly and as an anti-aircraft gunner on both the 20mm and 40mm guns. Thank you, Mr. Ivie, for talking with us today. Mr. Ivie, by the way, is from LaGrange, Kentucky. To start off the conversation, I'd like to ask, how did you get to come aboard the New Jersey? What was the process as a young Marine to board the ship?
Well, I became one of the typical Marine volunteer recruits, where we came out of boot camp and they went down the line, and anybody 6 feet or over, they volunteered us for sea duty. And that's how I became a seagoing Marine.
Was the rule at the time to be 6 feet or over to be a sea Marine?
They were sticking pretty close to that point, yes.
That's why I never made it, by the way. I was 5'7". So tell us, so you were selected, you were volunteered, if you will, military style, to serve on sea duty. What happens next?
Next, after sea duty, we went to sea school.
Sea school.
Down in San Diego, California. We spent about 3 months there. Graduation from sea school, that's where we learned Navy procedure. We learned the operation of the 5-inch gun mounts and the 40mm gun mounts. From that, we went to ships, and I was one that went to the New Jersey. We had other Marines that went to aircraft carriers, cruisers, etc., etc.
When you're leaving sea school, is there any differentiation between serving aboard a battleship, cruiser, light, heavy, aircraft carrier? Was there any preferred duty at the time?
Again, voluntary stuff.
You were told where to go.
You're told where to go.
So what was your reaction when you found out you're going to the New Jersey? Do you recall?
I thought it was going to be nice. Prior to that, I'd worked in the Navy yards in Bremerton, and I was pretty familiar with ships. And I knew that the battleships would be a more sturdy type of duty over a smaller ship. So I was glad to get a battleship.
And once you came aboard the New Jersey, talk to us a little bit about the duties that you had aboard ship, your responsibilities.
Responsibilities were orderly duties for the admiral, the captain, and the executive officer. Also, the brig sentry duty. And of course, we manned all the anti-aircraft guns. Plus, we had an admiral driver and a captain's driver, chauffeurs.
And you were part of both the 20 and the 40mm gun crews, is that correct?
Correct.
Talk a little bit about your duty on the 40mm guns.
Well, a 40mm gun, I was a loader on it. There were quad 40s, and there was a loader on each side, and we had to load clips of 40mm ammunition into the breech as the guns were firing.
How much do those clips weigh?
Probably around 25 pounds.
And so, what about the maintenance of the gun? Talk a little bit about that. What did you have to do to keep the thing operating?
Maintenance, we had to, after each shoot, we would have to take the barrels out, swab the barrels out with a solvent to clean them, keep the gun well maintained and well oiled, and of course another duty was chipping and painting the gun mounts. Make sure they were always up to date.
So was most of your time spent in the 40mm gun mount?
No, most of it was on a 20mm.
20. Okay, talk a little bit about the 20 then. You had more experiences with the 20.
Yeah, I had again one of the bow guns.
Famous guns.
Seemed like all of us got the bow.
Everybody likes the bow.
It was a wet gun mount. Every time you go into a wave, you got a mouthful of salt water. But the firing them, we had a Mark IV gun sight that was operated by another person in another mount. and very inaccurate. And what happened to me is I started firing using tracers as my target. Instead of using the gun sight, I would just look over the gun sight, follow my tracers, and get to the target. And they did not like this, and they pulled me off of the 20 millimeter mounts and put me on a 40 millimeter mount.
They mean the people in command, perhaps?
Yes, I wasn't following directions.
You mentioned, was it the Mark IV gun sight?
Mark IV.
Mark IV, because I've seen a lot of guidebooks for the Mark IV aboard the ship down below where I'm working. What was wrong with that setup? You said somebody else was in another mount?
You had a director in another mount on another part of the ship that was supposed to calculate the distance between the mount and the target in yards, and then he made adjustments up there with the director, which would operate the gun sight.
And then all the information would come down to you?
Yes.
So would you have to adjust the gun, or was it done automatically?
No. We followed the little target in the gun sight, and we were usually off. So I just peek over the top of it and follow my tracers.
Take a look like that. You mentioned it was nasty duty up forward. How you would stand 4 hours on, watch up there?
No, there's no watch on the gun mounts.
No,
it's just when we were at general quarters.
Yeah. Oh, I see. What would happen if you're in winter conditions or cold weather conditions?
Oh, they wouldn't put us up there.
Oh, so you would come back. You wouldn't be
Yeah.
put up there during very rough situations.
Oh, yes.
You talked a little bit. You talked a little bit about the fact that you were aboard the New Jersey when it was ultimately decommissioned.
Correct. I was one of the last Marines to come off of the ship. Yeah.
What was the reaction of the crew when they found out it was going to be decommissioned? And
There was mixed emotions. A lot of them were glad that they were getting off now, and others were sorry they were leaving. One of those situations. At that time, I was a little glad to come off. I thought I was going to get stationed on a land like a normal Marine would be stationed on a land. But that didn't quite happen.
where did they send you to?
I went to a light cruiser.
Oh, a little bit less. Was there much attachment of the personnel aboard to the ship itself? Was it considered a good ship to be aboard?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We had no problems. We got along fantastic with the Navy. We worked together as good as any team could in the military.
Talk to me a little bit about one of your normal days aboard the ship. What would happen?
Normally, if you were not on guard duty, or if you were not on orderly duty at sea, you were up at your gun mount, chipping and painting. We would chip the rust off and prime it and repaint it. But it was work details usually most of the day if you were not on duty.
The guns took a lot of work to maintain, probably with the salt water and so on.
Yes.
Would they rust overnight?
We wouldn't no, they weren't allowed to rest overnight.
A little side comment. I remember I dropped my rifle in the salt water and we're going to LCVP landing craft, and that was it for the next several days. I was cleaning that rifle. It got
They
rusty
were not
all over.
allowed to rest overnight.
Oh, really? Yeah. I'm sure the sergeant would be on your back very, very quickly.
I'm sure.
Yes. Talk to me a little bit about once you've left the ship now and you look back over the years, has the ship had any impact on you?
Oh, yes, definitely. I've followed the ship ever since 1948 when I went off. Just kept a little history of it whenever I could, and my children here in New Jersey would send me different articles that they may pick up out of a local newspaper. So I've kept up on it for quite a few years.
Is this your first time back aboard the ship?
Aboard, yes.
What's your reaction to being back on it again?
I'm thrilled to pieces. Good to be back.
One thing I've researched, I found in the archives, is that they used to have something called the New Jersey Society for the Battleship. And that was a group of leading New Jersey residents who raised money to try and help the crew. They gave out something called buddy bags I came upon at one point. Were you ever aware of anything like that? Anything coming from any civilian volunteer groups who wanted to help the group who were from New Jersey?
A buddy what?
They're called buddy bags. I guess little wash kits, etc. They're given out to the men.
I haven't seen one, no.
Oh, because I saw the records in the late 40s and 50s on that. and they were called buddy bags. They were put together, and they would raise money. They would put little articles in, toiletries,
I'm
etc.
sorry,
like
but
that. Okay, fine. At this point, do you have anything that you think is important that you'd like to say that I haven't asked?
Other than I am very happy that the state of New Jersey got a hold of the ship and is going to put it back into a monument. I think it's a great ship.
And also a learning laboratory. That's a lot of what we're doing here, is taking a videotape and then use it for people in the future to come aboard and look at what some of the former crew people say
Right.
about the ship. So it's not going to be necessarily forgotten and put away someplace. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ivie.
My
Thank you very much.
pleasure.
Thank you. Semper Fi. Thank you.